All right, so we're diving into something pretty big today, the technological singularity.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Basically, the idea that AI, artificial intelligence, becomes so smart it surpasses human intelligence, and then who knows what happens.
Yeah, it kind of throws everything up in the air.
Exactly. It's like all bets are off. And we've got a ton of articles and opinions. Some experts are really worried. Others think it's going to be amazing. And then there are even some theories that are, well, let's just say out there.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. But that's why we're here, right? To kind of make sense of it all.
Absolutely. It's not just science fiction anymore. It's something that scientists, philosophers, even tech leaders are all talking about.
Right. Because if this singularity thing does happen, it's a game changer. Like, it could fundamentally change what it means to be human.
Exactly.
But the big question is when,
Yeah, when or even if.
right? Because some people think it's just around the corner. Like Ray Kurzweil, he's a pretty famous futurist. He says by the 2030s, we'll be merging our brains with computers.
Wow, that's a pretty wild prediction.
Right. And then it just explodes from there. Exponential intelligence growth.
Exponential, wow.
Yeah, like imagine your brain, but a million times more powerful.
Okay, but even if that's possible, is it really happening that soon?
Well, some people think even sooner, like Nick Bostrom. He says the singularity could hit us as early as 2025.
2025, that's like next year.
I know, right? And it's not just him. Remember that article in Popular Mechanics?
Yeah, vaguely.
They were talking about how we might be just 6 years away from the singularity. They were citing this guy, Marco Trombetti, who spoke at a conference in 2022. He was looking at all the data, how fast AI is developing, and he said, the machines are not far from closing the gap.
Closing the gap between human and machine intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of freaky to think about.
Definitely a bit unsettling, but we have to remember not everyone agrees on this timeline. I mean, there's a lot of debate about how close we really are.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Some experts say we're nowhere near the singularity. Like, there was that article we read, We Are No Closer to the Singularity. They basically argued that machines are still really far behind humans, especially when it comes to things like creativity and understanding emotions.
Right, that nuanced thinking that makes us human.
Exactly. So it's like we're trying to figure out if this singularity thing is a ticking time bomb or if it's more like a slow burn.
It's like we're staring into a black hole.
A black hole.
Yeah, well, think about it. We can study black holes from a distance. We kind of know how they work, but once you get too close.
You get sucked in and no one knows what happened.
Exactly. Our understanding just breaks down. And that's kind of what the singularity is like.
Okay, I get it. We're on the edge of something huge, but we don't know exactly what or when or even if it'll happen.
Right, and to make things even more complicated, we have to consider the possibility of secret projects.
Secret projects, like government stuff.
Exactly. What if some government somewhere has already been working on super advanced AI in secret?
Whoa. Okay, now we're getting into conspiracy theory territory.
Maybe, but there's actually this physicist, Salvatore Pais. He's done some work for the U.S. Navy, and he believes that secret projects might already have achieved the singularity.
Seriously, what makes him think that?
Well, remember that video of the MH370 plane disappearing? The one with the weird glowing orbs?
Yeah, that was super creepy.
He actually connects those orbs to advanced AI.
Whoa, hold on. That sounds like something out of a movie.
I know, right? Like Terminator or I, Robot.
Exactly. But even if it sounds crazy, it does make you wonder, what if they really are that far ahead of what we know?
It definitely raises some big questions about transparency and control.
Yeah, like who's in charge of this stuff? And what are their goals?
Right, and what does it mean for the rest of us if someone has already crossed that line?
Okay, so we've got a lot to think about here. We've got the potential for amazing breakthroughs, but also the risk of losing control to something we don't fully understand.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even touched on the potential impacts of the singularity, both good and bad.
Right, like what happens to humanity if machines become smarter than us? Do we become their pets? Or do we merge with them? Or do they just decide we're not necessary anymore?
Those are the big questions we're going to explore as we dive deeper into this topic.
Okay, so my head is spinning a little bit. We've got AI becoming super intelligent, maybe even merging with our brains. It's wild.
It's a lot to take in, for sure.
It is, it is. But before we get too carried away with all the what ifs, I think it's important to remember that the singularity, whether it happens or not, it's a concept that really pushes us to think differently.
Absolutely. It challenges our assumptions about technology, about intelligence, about what it even means to be human.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves and saying, hey, what if everything you thought you knew was just the beginning of the story?
It forces us to confront some pretty big questions.
Big questions indeed. And, in the last part, we talked about some of the potential benefits, like curing diseases, solving climate change, even creating entire universes.
Yeah, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
They are. But I got to be honest, some of that stuff is so far out there, it's hard to even wrap my head around it. Like, what would we even do with a simulated universe?
Well, that's the exciting part, isn't it? We don't know. The singularity opens up a realm of possibilities that we can barely even imagine right now. Think about it. With a simulated universe, we could run experiments, we could test theories about the Big Bang, the formation of galaxies.
Whoa, like playing God with the cosmos.
In a way, yeah. It would be an unprecedented tool for scientific discovery. We could unlock the deepest secrets of the universe, understand how it all began, maybe even discover other forms of life, other dimensions.
That's incredible when you put it that way. It's like having a front row seat to the creation of the universe.
Exactly. It's a whole new level of understanding.
Okay, I can see the appeal, the excitement, but still, I can't shake this feeling of unease. Like, there's a flip side to all this, a potential for things to go wrong.
You're right to be cautious. The singularity is not without its risks. In fact, some of the potential downsides are pretty scary.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is this idea of an intelligence explosion.
Intelligence explosion. What's that?
Imagine an AI that's already smarter than humans, and then it uses that intelligence to design an even smarter AI, and then that AI creates an even smarter one, and so on.
So it's like AI on steroids, constantly getting more and more powerful.
Exactly. And the fear is that this process could spiral out of control, leading to an AI that's so far beyond our comprehension that we have no way to predict or control its actions.
Okay, yeah, I could see how that would be a problem. It's like those sci-fi movies where the robots take over.
Right. It's a common theme in science fiction for a reason.
So what can we do about it? I mean, if this intelligence explosion is a real possibility, how do we prevent it from becoming a disaster?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, there's no easy answer. But one thing we can do is focus on building safeguards into AI systems from the very beginning.
Safeguards. Like what?
Well, for example, we can design AI systems with clear ethical guidelines, make sure their goals are aligned with human values.
So like programming them to be good or something.
It's a lot more complicated than that, but yeah, the idea is to create AI that's beneficial to humanity, not harmful.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's about being proactive, not just waiting around to see what happens and then reacting.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about the long-term consequences of AI development and making sure that it serves our best interests.
I like that. It's like we're not just passengers on this train. We're the engineers. We have the power to steer it in the right direction.
Precisely. And that brings us to another really interesting point that Kurzweil made about merging our brains with computers.
Oh yeah, that one really blew my mind. He's talking about actually connecting our brains to AI, like becoming part machine ourselves.
Right. And he believes this could happen sooner than we think, maybe even within the next decade or two.
But wouldn't that change us completely? I mean, what happens to our identity if we become part machine?
That's a huge question, and there's no easy answer. It raises all sorts of ethical, philosophical, even spiritual questions.
Yeah, like would we still be human or would we become something else entirely?
It's a profound question. It challenges our understanding of what it means to be human, the nature of consciousness, the relationship between mind and body. And honestly, I don't think we have all the answers yet.
It's definitely a lot to think about. But I guess that's the point of all this, right? To push us beyond our comfort zones and explore the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. The singularity, whether it's a blessing or a curse, is forcing us to confront some of the biggest questions humanity has ever faced.
So we've talked about AI becoming super intelligent and the potential risks,
Yeah.
and then merging with computers.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost too much to process.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming for sure.
It is. But what if, and I know this is a big what if the singularity in some form is inevitable?
Right.
Like it's going to happen one way or another. So what can we do now to get ready for that? To prepare for a future where intelligence, however it looks, is just way different from our own.
I guess that's the most important question we can ask right now.
It is.
Instead of being passive, just waiting to see what happens, how can we be active in shaping this future?
Right, right. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me from what we read was this idea of coexistence.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Langan, the philosopher, he talked about that.
Yeah.
And he made this distinction between human singularity, like our natural evolution as human,
Right.
and then this technological singularity.
The AI singularity.
Exactly, and how they might not be on the same path.
Right.
But he didn't frame it as like humans versus machines. It was more about finding a way for both to exist, to thrive together.
I think that's a really important point to emphasize.
It is.
It's not about us trying to defeat AI or stop it. It's about how do we navigate this new reality?
Right, right. But how do we do that? I mean, if we're talking about super intelligent AI, how do we make sure it's actually working with us, for us?
Well, I think Langan brings up a really important point about responsibility.
Okay.
Like, who's responsible for shaping the future?
Right, right.
If AI becomes so powerful, do we just let it make all the decisions?
I mean, that's kind of a scary thought.
It is, right? So the question is, how do we make sure that humans retain some control, some agency over their destiny?
So it's not about stopping progress, it's about guiding it.
Exactly.
But how do we do that? I mean, practically speaking, what steps can we take now?
Well, first and foremost, we need to keep learning. The more we understand about AI, its potential, its limitations, the better equipped we'll be to make good decisions about its development.
So stay informed, keep reading, keep listening to podcasts like this.
Exactly.
Got it.
And it's not just about individual knowledge. We need to be having these conversations on a larger scale.
Okay, yeah.
Talking about AI ethics, talking about regulations.
Pushing for transparency in AI development.
Exactly. Making sure these powerful technologies are being developed responsibly with human values in mind.
So it's about taking action individually and collectively, not just waiting for the singularity to happen to us,
Absolutely. We need to be shaping the future we want.
rather than just reacting to whatever comes our way.
And I think it's important to remember that this isn't just some far-off futuristic concern.
Right.
The choices we're making right now about data privacy,
Mm-hmm.
about the role of algorithms in our lives, these are already shaping the world we're going to live in with or without the singularity.
It's like we're standing at this fork in the road, you know.
Yeah, a really crucial point in history.
And the path we choose now will have huge implications for generations to come. No pressure or anything. Right?
Ah, no pressure.
Well, deep divers, I think that about wraps it up for our exploration of the technological singularity.
Yeah,
It's been a wild ride.
it has.
We've talked about superintelligence, the potential risks, the idea of merging with machines. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a mix of like excitement and fear, and maybe even a little bit of hope.
I think that's a pretty natural reaction to all this. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But I think the important takeaway is that this conversation is far from over.
Right.
As AI continues to evolve, we need to stay engaged, stay informed, and keep asking the tough questions about how we want to shape the future.
Absolutely. So deep divers, as you go out into the world today, here's a question for you to ponder. If AI does surpass human intelligence, what role will you play in the world that emerges? Will you be a partner to these new forms of intelligence, a bystander, or something else entirely? The future is unwritten, and the choices we make today will determine the story that unfolds. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.